Hi, I'm Ryan. Thank you so much for ordering the tablature. I really appreciate the order. This one was fun to do. I've been doing a lot of AI projects lately, and they're always really interesting because they are not too difficult to hear, but at certain points they get kind of muddy and they make some interesting choices, as we'll get into for sure. I'll go over the tablature from start to finish. We'll go through the song, I'll play some of it, kind of talk about my suggestions, my recommendations of different passages, different fingerings, things like that. But there's going to be a common theme through this, which is me discussing what a real player might play versus what the engine has decided is being played. For example, the bass is generally meant to hold down the root note, lead the underlying progression, and in certain situations, the bass here takes a lot of liberty, not just in fills or like walking bass, but it at points is playing chords. Some points it's playing interesting root notes. So we'll talk about that. I'm not going to say what I think is right or wrong. That's totally up to you and how you hear this. And if you were to give this to a performer, you would understand that they probably would have an opinion on it too. So what I've written for you is, I believe, pretty note-to-note accurate of what I'm hearing. A couple muddy parts, as I said, that we'll go over. Before we get started, just a note about the rhythmic part of this. This is a classic 12/8 Purdy shuffle groove. The Purdy shuffle, if you don't know, named after Bernard Purdy, one of the great drummers. It's a 12/8 shuffle groove. We can feel this in 4, in 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can feel this in 4 groove, but the subdivisions are all kind of 3s, but you wouldn't do this, like you wouldn't transcribe this in 4/4 as triplets. That's just overly complex. So 12/8 does that. You have 1E, a 2E, a 3E, a 4E, a 1. There's like 3 subdivisions inside of each bar there. That's why what you'll see a lot of when I'm doing here, for example, like straight away I'm looking at bar 7 and 8. I'll refer to the tabs in their bar numbers right above them. Bar 7 and 8, I've written. And that is just a very simplistic demonstration of what could be played. Now, the reason I say that is because there's a ton of different places in the song where the bass that you're hearing is all any number of 16th notes. So in that instance, I'm only playing this E flat. I've tabbed out what I think is the most simplest iteration of that. You or the performer of this can decide if they want it to sound like very simple, or they might want it to sound more involved, like as many notes as you want to put in there. All stylistic preference. I'm not going to attempt to capture what a bassist might play on every bar because every bar can be different, right? It has to do with feel and groove. So you'll see that pattern a lot. That's a guideline for what might be played. You'll see what I mean later on. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm playing a standard tuned bass. This is a 4-string Fender bass that I have here. And let's go straight to the beginning. Immediately I hear this fill. That sounds pretty close to me. Again, most of these fills, I am just sort of coming up with what I think a bassist might play, and I can recommend here and there what I would play as well. So for me, this sounds pretty good. You can hear it in the 4th bar of the intro. We get the shuffle groove. 2, 3, 4. So already I want to talk about something here. Bar 5 to 6, I have this pickup 6. That is stylistic. I hear this note intentionally right before the 1. So I put it in there. There's going to be times that you'll notice that there is no pickup written, or there's an X, which is just to denote a dead note. Again, all rhythmic groove reasons. Bassists do a lot of percussive groove playing where they might not even be playing a lot of actual notes. But where I do hear an actual note, I'll write that. So on bar 5 to 6, there's a pickup of 6th fret to 4th fret. So altogether. Then we start the what I call rock intro. This is all root notes, and you'll notice they follow that same pattern on the tabs of that would be the simplest way you would play it. Da, 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 which is fine. I guarantee you give this to any bassist, they might embellish here and there just for groove purposes and personality, and it's just kind of boring to just do this the whole time. So it's written like that, again, as guidelines, and I want you to understand that that is not necessarily exactly what's happening. It changes the entire song. Sometimes it's as simple as that, and sometimes there's a lot going on. I would recommend more right-hand activity during the louder or more impactful parts. Like, this is a heavy rock intro, all the instruments are playing, so probably it's a little bit... right, there's a little more fun going on, but let's get through this rock intro from bar 9 to bar 16. Here's what I'm hearing here. Bar 17 we start, we land on that G sharp and slide out. A couple ways you could play this here. I've elected to play this this major triad here, 6 to 5 on the D and 8, and then land on the E here on 7th fret. This could be played here, 6, 5, and then 3 on the top string. That feels unnecessary to me. I just want to make the point. You could play these notes in 2 different places. So I've gone here. And then again, I'm playing 7, 4, 5 on the D. That could be played here. 7, 9, 10. A lot of different places to play this. But because we end up on... we eventually need to land on this G sharp. So I want to keep my phrasing as close to this fret as possible, because the alternative would be... which is 8, 10, and then I gotta jump to this 4th fret. So again, however you'd like to play that is up to you. For the purposes of simplicity, I'm keeping it, trying to keep it in a nice little place. Okay, we go to, this is the verse. This is a nice groove on the verse, and then you can see in bar 17, there's an X there. The X is a dead note, which is just not fretting anything, just muting the strings. Just as a pickup note that's more percussive than it is harmonic. Da, da, da. And then bar 21 is where we get a kind of our first interesting decision. The progression is leading us from G sharp to E flat, back to G sharp. That is the progression of the verse. Like, at its most simplest form, I would just do this. And then we finish on that 4th note, this C sharp. At its most basic, we're just bouncing between those. The decision that it's made, though, is bar 21. Like a pickup from this F sharp to the G sharp. The 1 of the bar is not the tonic note, but that's cool. And then we have a little more of a walking bass line up. So I'm looking at bar 21, 22, 23. Chromatic here. 7, 4, 5, 6. And then we end on that C sharp. Then we pick up into what I'm calling the pre-chorus. And you can see bar 28 is another pickup. Open to 4. This is what I'm hearing in the song. I personally would keep it on the E. That seems like the most baseline interpretation of the progression, but the pickup that they're doing is... so, fine, right? Then we keep going. And we go to A just once. This is the only time in the entire song that it does this. That's what I'm hearing. Check that against me. Listen to the song. This is bar 31 of the pre-chorus here. We go to A, and then back to A flat or G sharp. And then 33 and 34. This is when I messaged you and I said, is this an AI generated track? Because of moments like this. In bar 33, 34, I've tabbed it as 4 and 4. It's a really muddy bass frequency that's happening. It sounds like more than one note, and it sounds difficult to discern. The progression wants it to just be G sharp. That's just what the progression's calling for. It's very simple. It's not deviating from the progression or the tonic, but it's a chord. There's just some muddiness going on. It only happens in these two instances, 33 and 34. Here, 57 seconds into the song. There's a lot of different things you could do here. You could play this as a strong power chord, 4th in the root and 6th fret. If you wanted just a bigger, more harmonic sound. Because it's so muddy and a little bit dissident, I've chosen the 4th here. 4 and 4, C sharp, G sharp. This could also be played, I suppose, open E with the C sharp above it. And if you're thinking like that just sounds muddy, like yeah, that's what it sounds like. In its simplest form, I would just keep playing this G sharp. If you wanted to play a chord, I would recommend this chord, stacked 4s, or open 4. And then back to the regular part. And then we end on E, and bar 36, we slide down. It should say chorus here, bar 37, I wrote chorus, it did not take. Couple ideas here that I am surprised to see. They don't seem consistent, but we'll talk about it. We go into the open E, pick up into bar 39 is this 1st fret, which does make sense. That's the major third of F sharp, right? This one I don't love. This is bar 41. We want to go up to C sharp. This is the chorus, so we're just supposed to hold the line, kind of really reinforce the chord. The 1 of bar 41, that could be seen as a pickup, a transition move, so that's fine, I guess. I don't like that one as much as the other one. But then we proceed as normal, and again, just to reinforce the point that this is what I'm writing. Those are guidelines. You should embellish that or play as many notes as you want, but it stays on those notes, if that makes sense. And then the final thing is bar 47 into 48. We get a really cool fill. I love this one, actually. 2nd fret, 4th, slide to 6th, and then 4 and 4. I suppose you could hammer on slide and then bar your way through, or you could slide here, then hammer on, and then fret these notes. But that's a great fill, really like that one. Let me play through this chorus for you. So just notice a couple things. This transition, and the final fill. So let's play through that and see how it goes. We finish on the guitar interlude back onto this G sharp to get it started. This part's pretty simple. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 of these interludes, and they're all basically the same. So I'm looking at bar 49. Very simple. And we start the next verse again on the G sharp. 1 fill at bar 54. I'm going 4, slide to 6, and then hammer, and then landing on the 6th fret. And then we go to this next verse, which is more interesting. Same as the first verse, really, but there's some nice little fills and stuff. So let's hear that. One thing to note here, bar 61, there's a pickup into 62. You can see that little 16th note of 4. Before, early in the song, that was a dead note. Same idea, right? And then a little fill here, hammer on slide, 62 to 63, which I think we played previously. And then we go into pre-chorus 2, which is essentially the same. There's a couple things to talk about, so let's fast forward to pre-chorus 2. Now you can see in bar 68, I added the octave, 7th fret over the E. It's just an octave, it makes the chord a little bigger. I do hear it though. I hear a little higher tonic in it, so fine, right? You don't have to do that, but that is something I noticed. It's the only time it happens, so take it or leave it, right? And then right before the second chorus, I have a nice pickup of 6, 4. Now we're getting into bar 77. This is the second chorus. First 4 bars of this chorus are insane. The bass is clearly going for a walk here. It's decided that it is alive and wants to do more interesting things than just play. That is the roots of all the chords here, but the bass has decided to play. Lot going on, which is all cool. It's grooving. Just again, the bass, for me, in my opinion, is designed to reinforce the roots. And the root here is E, and it's decided to start its first note on B, which is a 5th of E, so totally cool. We're still fine there. It's in the key. This is 2 minutes and 14 seconds. Pick up. Normal. And then in bar 84, you can see another pickup there, stylistic choice. And then we go to C. This is a bizarre choice. I think it's really cool. Only happens once, and it's a bar and a half, and it's C. And then we're back into sort of the regular progression. That's bar 85. This happens right around 2 minutes and 29 seconds. Right here. Little fill, cool fill. And I'm finishing the chorus with this octave, 2 and 4. To make it a really big finish. That C is bizarre. I think it's kind of interesting, and it does kind of make sense. That's sort of like a G sharp dominant. That's kind of the sound I guess they're going for. That's my recommendation. Go to the C for a bar and a half. Now we're into Guitar Interlude 2. Guitar Interlude 2 is essentially the same as the first interlude. It's bar 89. There's a really nice fill at bar 92, and then kind of similar throughout. The guitar interlude here, bar 89. Cool fill here. That's 4 to 4 on the D, A and D. And then 2 to 6 on the A is what I wrote. Not an unreasonable stretch, but if you wanted a smaller interval, you could play 4, 4, 2, 1. So nice outro there. Those last notes from bar 94 to 96 I think are pretty good. Those are pretty accurate. And then we go to the outro guitar solo. This is the last piece here, bar 97 all the way through to the end of the song. We get a little funky with the notes again, but I like it. We go. We end on this beat. Which is excellent. Yeah, you hear it. So nice fill. If this were me writing the song, the whole song tells me to end on the G sharp, the tonic note. Like that is kind of the whole theme of this song. Decides to end on the minor third here. Bizarre choice to me, but fine, right? We go. And then the song finishes there. A little awkward to play with the fingerings, but definitely those are the notes that are happening. This is right at 3 minutes, and we end on that B there. And that's it. Okay, so I hope that you don't feel like I'm being too critical of the song. I mean, obviously I have opinions on AI-generated music in general. I have no problems transcribing them. I think it's actually a really interesting challenge. But I do think it's important to talk about the distinction between what the AI is generating as playable and what is actually playable or functional on the instrument. I think this song is very, very sure of what it wants to do. Now, what it wants to do is groove on G sharp the whole time. It wants to... wants to stay in this type of groove. That's what the progression is kind of saying to me. So anytime it deviates from that, that's not abnormal, but you do have to kind of justify it. And in some instances, like when they go to the C, when they go to this, it's the only time in the song that it does that. And so that begs the question of like, is that just a really curious style choice? Because if so, that's cool. But it also like lends me to believe that instance and also the chord, the muddiness of it. Moments like that are where I am unsure if that's a confident decision that the AI has made that is appropriate for the song, and there's something to be said about that. Or if it's just kind of messy and hazy. Same thing with the bass taking a... really interesting time to go nuts as a bass player. The second chorus only for 2 bars, right? So once again, it could be fully intentional and something that a bass player might play. So what I've provided for you, I believe, are like 95% at least accurate notation as far as the notes that are being played that you hear. But I do want you to kind of consider if you wanted to play this live or if you wanted to give this to a bass player, you know, part of playing with real musicians is that they have ideas, they have personality, and some of those personalities include going for walks and stuff. But there's also a consistency to the music that is important for the essence of the song. So anyway, not my place. That's my philosophical interpretation of what's happening here. But as I've provided for you, I hope it's sufficient. I hope that you can use these tabs as guidelines to play along with the song. And if you were to play along this tablature with the whole song, it would play fine. It would play exactly what you're hearing. But yeah, I think, you know, use your discretion and use your judgment to make the song sound the way you want it to sound. That's that. Sorry for getting on my soapbox there. But yeah, it was fun. It was a good challenge. I really appreciate the order. Unlimited revisions to this for free. So just let me know if you want anything changed. I can write more intricate things. I can simplify it more. If you think that there's any edits that you might need, just let me know. I want this to be a conversation, you know, not just a take it and run type of thing. So yeah, let me know what I can do to help. But hopefully we can work together again. So thank you. Take care.